Welcome to the Full-Time FBA Show. In each episode, it's our goal to help you turn part-time hours into a full-time income selling almost anything on Amazon. And now, your hosts of the show, Stephen and Rebecca Smotherman.
Welcome to episode number 278 of the Full-Time FBA Show. Today, we're going to talk about what we wish we knew before we first started doing wholesale sourcing to sell on Amazon. And to talk through this issue with me is my wife, Rebecca. What's up, Rebecca?
Hey there. Really glad to be talking about this. This is one of my favorite topics. We come around to this, once or twice a year. We try to focus on wholesale, and I'm excited that we're going to be covering what we wish we knew before we started sourcing today.
Oh, yeah. If you missed last week's episode, it's wholesale month. We're totally focusing on wholesale all this month, including today's episode of the Full-Time FBA Show.
So like Steven said, this month is wholesale month here at the Full-Time FBA Show, and all month long, we'll be focusing on topics that center around getting started with selling wholesale inventory on Amazon. But before we get into that, I wanted to remind you not to forget to subscribe to the Full-Time FBA newsletter. You're going to get news, updates, training, and strategies from that newsletter, things that are actually working right now in our Amazon business, and it's all going to be delivered to you at least once a week in your email. The good news is that it only takes 30 seconds to subscribe. All you got to do is go to fulltimefba.com/subscribe and enter a few pieces of contact info, and you're in.
Yeah, and we're also going to send you access to some free resources to help get your Amazon business going today. So go to fulltimefba.com/subscribe and join the newsletter today.
So Stephen and I have been selling profitable inventory via Amazon for over a decade, and in the past 10 plus years, we've learned a whole lot, and things have changed a whole lot. Mm-hmm. That's an understatement. But in fact, next week on the show, we're going to be talking about what's working and what's not for wholesale in 2025 because of all the changes. But today we're going to be getting into all the things we wished we knew ahead of time before we got started with selling wholesale items on Amazon. So, Stephen, kick us off with the first thing you wish you knew before you got into wholesale on Amazon.
Well, I'm going to start off with one of my biggest and most profitable tips. I mean, we usually save these for the end of the episodes, but I'm going to start off with a bang here. And it's a tip that's going to save you tons of wasted time, and that is this. The best brands for resellers to focus on selling on Amazon are the brands you've probably never heard of. In other words, if the brand that you're wanting to sell on Amazon, you both know that name, your neighbor knows that name, then it's 99.9% likely that they will never open up a wholesale relationship with you to sell their stuff on Amazon. That sounds like a bummer. And they might not even reply to any kind of communication you reach out to them trying to get things started. I mean, if you're thinking Nike or Lego or Apple or any other widely known brand, that's not going to work out for you. I'm just here to tell you. Now, this is not saying that your Amazon seller metrics won't one day be good enough for you to have the brand allow you to sell their stuff on Amazon, but they're just not going to open up a purchasing account for you to buy their stuff wholesale to sell it on Amazon.
Now, you might be thinking, Stephen, you just said some really bummer news. How is this one of your biggest and most profitable tips?
That's what I do.
I know. Well, remember what Stephen's best tip actually was. The best brands for resellers to focus on selling on Amazon are the brands you've never heard of. Truly, ones you've never heard of. But just because the brand is not a nationally known brand, that doesn't mean the brand isn't selling millions of dollars on Amazon right now, and you could get a piece of that action.
Right. And these brands that you've never heard of, they are way more likely to let you buy their stuff at wholesale rates to sell it on Amazon. And I'll let you know a little secret. Almost every single brand that we've ever bought wholesale to sell on Amazon for our own Amazon business, it was a brand that we have never heard of before we started selling it. But those brands are selling a ton on Amazon. And now we have that opportunity to sell a ton of items of that brand on Amazon too.
Not only does this tip help make you more money on Amazon, but it also helps you avoid wasting a ton of time. Like Stephen said, you're not going to be reaching out to these bigger nationally known brands trying to seek approval to sell them on Amazon and then only get the door shut in your face again and again, or more likely actually never hear a reply from them at all. Is it better to get the rejection notice or to get no response at all? Either way, time wasted is money lost. So don't waste your time focusing on the biggest brands, but instead focus on the smaller brands that are selling consistently and profitably. That's where you need to focus most of your sourcing time when dealing with wholesale.
Another tip that I wish I had learned early on in my wholesale journey of first getting started with this is this tip. I don't need to be making these huge high dollar orders to make wholesale orders directly with the brand. I can actually make smaller, more affordable orders when ordering from these wholesale brands. Yes, most of the brands will want you to make a MOQ, a minimum order quantity. And the MOQs, they can be set up by minimum number of items or minimum total dollar value or per item minimum. But these minimums don't have to be super high at all. In fact, the minimum order quantity might be a minimum of 2 or 4 or something like that. Again, we're buying from these smaller $1 million brands, not the huge, big-time brands that might ask for hundreds of items ordered or thousands of dollars for a minimum order quantity. In fact, I would say most of the brands that we work with, on average, have about a $300 minimum when it comes to orders. And sometimes the minimum order is only on the opening order, and that minimum's just not applied for orders thereafter.
Right, and that minimum number of items, it might actually just be the size of a case pack. They don't want you ordering an odd number. They want you ordering a minimum number, which is the case pack number. So another tip that I wish we had learned earlier in our wholesale journey is this. You don't need to have access to your own warehouse to successfully sell wholesale inventory on Amazon. When Stephen first started looking into wholesale, we first assumed that we might need to get our own warehouse with a big old forklift or at least get a pallet jack so that Stephen can move all the pallets of stuff we're going to be ordering.
I was looking forward to that big old forklift.
I know. You were so disappointed when we didn't have to get a pallet jack. So yeah, that assumption was dead wrong. Remember, most brands that you'll be selling on Amazon won't need you to buy high amounts of inventory, like an entire pallet of inventory. But you can order smaller amounts if you want to. And even if you want to order tons of inventory from the brand, you don't even need to ship it all to your house for processing. Because almost all brands will ship your wholesale orders to a prep center, which is basically a third-party warehouse that will receive your wholesale orders for you. And they're going to prep your orders according to Amazon's guidelines and then ship your inventory directly to Amazon for you. All for a fee, of course, but when you're buying directly from the brand, you should have that profit wiggle room to outsource the Amazon prep to an Amazon-focused prep center. So to hear an interview with the prep center that we use, and it's creatively called My Prep Center, be sure you listen to episode 199 of the Full-Time FBA Show. You can find that episode by going to fulltimefba.com/199.
Yeah, we love My Prep Center, called My Prep Center, and you can check them out for yourself, fulltimefba.com/myprepcenter, or you can just go to the show notes of this episode, fulltimefba.com/278, for all the links that we talk about in this episode.
Now, this is a much rarer possibility, but you should at least know that sometimes you'll be able to find a wholesale brand that does not even need to send your inventory to the prep center, but can actually, and again, this is very rare, they can send your inventory directly into the Amazon warehouse. This is awesome because it saves you the fee of outsourcing the Amazon prep to someone else. And then it also saves you the additional shipping costs. But again, it's very rare to find a brand who's willing to do that, but you should at least know that you should ask for this, because if you never ask, you'll never know if it's possible. Now, Stephen usually doesn't ask during the opening order with the new brand, but he will reach out and ask them on a second order if prepping the inventory for us to ship it directly to Amazon is a possibility.
Right. And there have been a few brands that all I've had to do was provide them with the FNSKU labels for the inventory, the box configurations, and the shipping labels for each of the shipments, and it saves us tons of time, gets our inventory to Amazon quicker, increases our ROI if a brand is agreeable to this request. If they are agreeable, which, like we said before, it's rare, but it happens.
The next aspect of selling wholesale on Amazon that we wish we knew before we started is this. Get used to hearing the word no.
No.
Right. It's like dealing with a toddler. You're going to have to hear no a lot. So when you reach out to ask for a wholesale buy list from a brand, or you ask to open an account, the most common response you're going to get back is no. It's just a fact. You're going to get a lot of no's, and possibly even worse, some or a lot of companies might just ghost you completely and you'll get no response. Hearing no again and again is extremely frustrating, but it's just the reality of this industry. In fact, if you're just getting started with trying to land wholesale accounts so you can sell their inventory on Amazon, you should know that most brands do not like working with Amazon sellers.
Yeah, they don't. It's true. And you know what? It's actually earned. Over the years, Amazon sellers have really been horrible with working with wholesalers, and Amazon sellers have a bad reputation with most brands. And so it's just kind of how things are right now. But here's the thing that will be a real paradigm shift. If you work to completely understand it, getting a no from a brand is actually a good thing. If you don't get a response, it might be hard to know where to go next. But if a brand gives you a no, it gives you an opportunity towards earning the trust of the brand so that you can get that account. And it means that other sellers who aren't as smart and not as hard at working at you will hear the word no and just give up entirely and move on to trying another brand to get a wholesale account with. No is a barrier to entry. And anytime you have a barrier to entry in any business, it makes the profit potential that much sweeter for the person who is patient and knows how to turn that no into a yes.
Honestly, this last facet of wholesale sourcing with the no answer is the one that opened my eyes to the huge potential for getting niche, small wholesale accounts that other people aren't landing, but they could make us a lot of money. We have a training coming up where you'll learn more about the types of strategies we use with wholesale sourcing. It is going to be free training where you'll hear more about these best methods to use when getting started with wholesale on Amazon, and you do not want to miss it.
Yeah, you will want to get on the wait list to be notified when this training opens up so that you can sign up as soon as possible. So go to fulltimefba.com/wholesale workshop to get signed up for the notification, or it might actually take you directly to the registration depending on when you're listening to this. So we only do wholesale training once or twice a year, and so this is your opportunity to sit in on a free workshop completely designed on the topic of getting completely dedicated. Okay. We only do this wholesale training once or twice a year, so this is your opportunity to sit in on a free workshop completely dedicated to the topic of growing your Amazon business through wholesale sourcing. Again, fulltimefba.com/wholesale workshop will take you right to where you need to go to get signed up for the training.
Thank you so much for tuning in for this episode of the Full-Time FBA Show. We're on episode number 278. So if you go to fulltimefba.com/278, you'll get the show notes for this episode, as well as all of the links that were mentioned.
And next week on the show, we're going to talk about what's actually working and what's not working for wholesale in 2025. So join us with that conversation next week on the Full-Time FBA Show.
That's all for this episode of the Full-Time FBA Show. So head over to fulltimefba.com/podcast, where you'll find the show notes and links from this episode. While you're there, subscribe to our newsletter where you'll get several free downloads of our popular and helpful Amazon FBA resources. Now, take action on what you've learned today so you can find success at turning part-time hours into a full-time income with Amazon FBA.